welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your It's Dangerous to Even Play Video Games Alone host, Madelyn.
I'm your It Sure Is host, Emma.
And thanks for tuning into this week's show. It's side quest time. Even though last week, what is the PAX episode? The PAX episode is like a spin-off, like a DLC.
It's marked as a special episode.
Look at you. It's a special episode. But this week it's a side quest, which means it's 7 weeks in gaming. This podcast has been 7 weeks in gaming more than it's been 6 weeks in gaming in 2023.
It has not.
Yes, it has. There have been 3 of them, and I'm pretty sure that 2 of them have been 7 weeks in gaming. So,
okay.
Statistically, just spit math here.
Whoops.
Numbers go up. But it's our save data podcast where we talk about the games that we've been playing this time, the past 7 weeks. And notably, Emma, many more than me.
Yes. Yeah. I'll try to keep it brief and snappy, you know?
We're known for that on this show.
We are known for our brief and snappy demeanors.
Brief and snappy analysis.
That's what we do.
Well, I got to see Emma play some games, some Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Did
Probably
put me
won't
to
start
sleep.
with Resident Evil.
Did have me napping on the couch. But nothing to do with Resident Evil. Everything to do with Emma's couch.
Well, should I start it off?
You have to start it off because I have 1.5 games. No, I'm just kidding. But
You have more than that.
Sort of not kidding.
I'll do a couple of check-ins then. Of course, our regular Cold Steel 4 check-in. I think when last we left off, we were about to go in and fight Crow.
Mm-hmm.
So we went in, we fought Crow. He was about to evaporate into the ether or whatever. Whatever happens when you die for like the 3rd time or something. Whatever.
Yeah, 3rd death is ether death. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we saved him with the power of hug, and you owe me money, so you can't die. So he's still alive, clinging to life somehow, despite all efforts to the contrary on his part. And he's, our friend, our buddy now. He's in my party. Very cool.
I'm glad he's forgiven you for killing him.
We didn't kill him. It was Cedric, I think. Pretty sure.
Sure. Okay.
It was Cedric who killed him.
Whatever you say.
Also, he was evil at the time, so whatever. Right?
Right, you're right. When you're evil, you aren't allowed to hold a grudge about
No.
being killed.
You're not.
Notably, there was no Reen merch at PAX. So that's something, I can't remember if we talked about this last week
no
or not.
Reen. So the most amusing part of my playthrough right now, so we've gone through another chapter since Crow joined up. We saved the Empress and our friend Toa from being not really imprisoned. What is it called? Like under house arrest, basically.
Sure.
So we got them out of house arrest. That was the main thing. But I have the copy I have comes with all of these costume stuff, right? So I always change all their hair colors.
Mm-hmm.
And their outfits just because it's funny. So Reen's wearing the rainbow hair right now. But because canonically his hair has changed color permanently from black to white, every new character we meet is like, huh, Reen, look at your new hair.
Oh, no. That is what they would... I mean, that's realistic.
I know. It just works really well. I know canonically they're commenting on the whiteness of it, but actually they're commenting on his new rainbow dye job. And only a couple of them have complimentary things to say.
And that's canon.
And that's canon. Everyone else seems vaguely concerned about it.
I mean, dramatic hair change, often an indicator of a need for concern.
You're right. You're right.
Wait for him to get bangs.
I mean, a lot of effort went into this one, there are multiple different colors in there.
And maintaining that. I'm always impressed with people who can maintain that kind of hair.
During wartime.
Yes.
Even. Disconcerting. My other check-in, continuing to play Persona 3 Portable, replay Persona 3 Portable. We went through I can't remember if the first one, the third or second or third full moon operation. The way this one's paced, if you aren't aware, is every full moon there's like a story event, right? So like you send the calling card or whatever equivalent. It just is tied to the calendar. So whenever there's a full moon, there's like a big shadow that's coming up that you'll have to defeat. So you're pacing your gameplay around making sure that you're ready for the full moon. So we got our navigation person recruited, Fuka, which means that our previous navigation person, Mitsuru, is now a combat operator. So bigger party, continuing to, do our high school things while fighting shadows, also in school.
Party time. Bigger party.
It's party time.
Bigger party, bigger problems.
The one thing, they added like quick save and retry from the start of a floor in this, which the original did not have, which is really nice for one thing. However, they did not add this to full moon operations. So if you do die during the full moon boss, you do have to start from the very beginning again.
Yikes.
And they did not add a skip cutscene button.
Oh.
So you better hope you are ready when
Man.
you play this.
Go back and listen to our Retro Game Aesthetics podcast.
I mean, the retry from the floor, really appreciated. I love that. Going through Tartarus, I make a silly error. I don't lose like an hour's worth of progress. That's great. Just, I wish you'd done it for the full moon, too. Or at least let me pop like a quick save, like in the middle of it,
Yeah.
Something? No, but yeah. So that's Persona 3 Portable. Simone Takoyaki.
Oh.
That's what I named her.
Takoyaki.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So they call you Takoyaki-san? Do you like sing the song to yourself?
No.
I sing that song to myself sometimes with no prompting, so you're more powerful than I am. I only play podcast games now for this episode. I only have podcast games to talk about, which, is a testament to your game-picking skills, I think. And it's a testament. I really should be like, I started this game. Haha, not too many thoughts about it yet. Stay tuned next time. To like bully myself into starting one of the other games that I'm like on the I've been having a hard time starting a game, Mm-hmm. But I did finish several games in this period.
I'm ready.
River City Girls, right? Let's throw it back to River City Girls. The very beginning of this 7 weeks. One of the podcast games for the first podcast in this cycle. It's been a big, as I alluded to in my intro, a local co-op 7 weeks at Talk This HQ NYC. Mm-hmm. So Click Like Boyfriend and I played all of River City Girls 1 in like 3 days, something like that. And really, really enjoyed it. I mean, I talked about this on that show, and like a little bit around the kind of retro game aesthetics too. But something of a running theme, I think, for at least 2 of the games that I'm talking about today is it was the right length for the level of complexity that this game was able to bring. So like we were able, we played some we didn't play 8-hour sessions of this or anything, but we played for a couple hours at a time, a few days in a row, right? Mm-hmm. But it was good. It was like a good contained experience, local co-op, beat 'em up, silly dialogue, fun. And I think it would have suffered for being much longer than that. Yeah. I was thinking about this in the context of our beat 'em up experiences at PAX too, of, this is a game that, felt pretty much right at the sort of 8 to 10 hour mark of, there wasn't that much progression in, you learned some new skills, but how effectively was I ever able to utilize my fancy combat skills? Not super effectively. I was not super great at that. But we had a lot of fun doing it, and I feel like it's sort of reawakened our local co-op hunger over here at the New York City office. And I think we'll probably play, Click Like Boyfriend wanted to jump right into River City Girls 2. He was like, let's do this one right away. Let's do it right away. And I made him stop pretty much for the reasons that I just said, that I felt like it was a good 10-hour experience. And if we played the next one immediately back to back, it might suffer for that. But I think we will probably, well, I just need to put on an alert for when it goes like more on sale. I feel like River City Girls 2 is like $40 right now, which is fine. I would pay that. I could pay that, but I would be pissed if I did it and then like the next week it was $20.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like, yes, I must play it exactly this week right now. I've already made myself take an enforced pause. But I'll be interested to see what that sequel is like, given that it does seem like they've kind of like expanded things a little bit. And I'll be interested to see if that feels like a positive or if it feels like a negative in this case, where I felt like a good contained experience that didn't have that much more to offer.
Oh yeah, how'd you feel about the ending?
Oh yeah, the ending. That was weird. Spoilers for River City Girls here, I guess. Where so we didn't play through because, again, like I said, this game was enough. I didn't want to play through literally the whole game again, basically, to get the true ending. But we only got the like normal ending, which is still the boys, they're not dating.
Ah, I see.
So I was a little confused. I was like, did they change it to this when I played it? But it's only then when you go back and you fight like the secret boss, basically. If you go through to the end of the game and you fight their two real girlfriends, it's only then that it's more like, haha, like of course we're dating.
Yeah.
Like funny. So like on one hand it was weird, and I could see how for people who hadn't done research for a podcast on the series that they were doing and had some of this background context, that it would have been weird, but I don't know. It was just sort of funny. The whole ending was kind of stupid to begin with.
Yeah.
So, you know, to me it reads more like they realized, this is a game we're going to do a sequel of.
Yeah.
So we got to change the ending. Not necessarily, we made a mistake with this. Which I can, I respect that. I respect it selling better and getting better reviews than they expected, and feeling like, oh no, what have we done? They aren't even dating. That's weird. Help, we gotta fix it. So yeah, I didn't find it that off-putting. It was weird, but it wasn't like, it was bold weird.
Right.
It's not like the story was that. I mean, this will be a theme this week too. It's not like the story was that. I was so invested in the story that I was like, yes, they're gonna reunite with their boyfriends. Yes. So it's just silly. But the whole ending is silly. They fall from like a giant building. Like it's just like everybody's dead. Everybody's dead in the ending anyway. So, it's fine.
Sure. All right. I'll do my continuing ones I talked about last time we did one of these that I have since finished or am still playing. I finished Chained Echoes.
Right.
Which was like the throwback turn-based RPG one with pixel art and whatever. It's really interesting. It sort of feels like one of those things where like the author had like really fully thought out the world and stuff and all of this lore and all of these like legends and stuff, but because of that and because so much of that ended up included in the main story, it felt like things were not actually complete. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want your world to feel like filled out, right? And even have like background details that don't necessarily matter to the main plot, right?
Yeah.
But it felt like it foregrounded a lot of stuff that then was like not relevant to the ending.
Yeah.
And it sort of took away focus from the parts that were relevant to where the story went, which sort of, I guess, lessened the impact of like the last third of the game or so. Also, while most of the characters' arcs end, well, there's some weird stuff that happens with the main character at the end, but they really leave it open-ended of, like, him going off on a new journey, which is like, was this guy planning a sequel, or did they just want to leave it open-ended, or what? You know?
Yeah.
But there's some really interesting concepts, and it's really, really pretty. And the gameplay was pretty fun, although in the very last dungeon, I did turn down, like, just the damage output. There's some, like, variable difficulty options that you can adjust. I just turned down how much damage the enemies did, because every encounter was, like, a nail biter, and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I turned it back up for the last boss, but just the mobs in the last section, I was like, just let me run around this place peacefully, please.
Yeah, not interested in adding an extra, like, 4 hours to this.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was interesting. If you like these sorts of games, like sort of classic JRPG types, you'll probably like this, because it's very much inspired by, you know, early Final Fantasies and that sort of stuff. So, you know, came out liking it, basically.
That's
and
good.
That's about it. Yeah.
That's positive.
And the other one, the last, all the waves of DLC are now out for Fire Emblem Engage. So I played a lot of the extra maps where you get new emblem bracelets that you can use. So each one, there's like 7 maps that you can play, and then you earn a new DLC character after you're done with it. Those are all fun. They're like all based on, well, you know, each emblem that's actually in the game also has their own map that's based on ones from the game, but then these ones also have maps that are based on ones from their own game, and have, like, you know, little fun gimmicks and stuff. The DLC emblems especially are like, they have like weird little gimmicks that are really interesting. And then the last wave of DLC came out like on Thursday, I think. So I'm about halfway done with it now, which are the Fell Xenologues, which is like a little sub-story thing that you get. They've been doing these, I think, since like Awakening, of like just very hard like preset maps. Like you get your characters with a certain inventory and at a certain level, and you do the maps like that. The only thing that carries over is any abilities you've gotten from emblems and your bond level with those emblems. So otherwise, your units are much weaker than they were.
Right.
It's a little bit of adjustment going into it for various reasons. I feel like the Engage's main maps are like very propulsive. Like, they really want you to be continuing to move through them a lot of the time. Whereas these ones are very much more like what I'm used to with Fire Emblem, which is very like turtle up and take everything like one little section at a time, you know, for safety. So I've had to readjust to that, and also not accidentally forgetting that, like, oh, Diamant doesn't have his 70% crit axe on him right now.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
so, in fact, cannot handle what I just sent him to do.
Yeah, strategically a little different.
But it's fun because I can use, you know, units that I don't in the main story, because they're all equalized in this. So the Xenologues are basically like, you go to another world that's like topsy-turvy Freaky Friday town, where everybody you've met, like the main royals, have like sort of opposite, but sort of just like dark mirror personalities of their normal forms, I guess. So we went to Firene, who is like in the normal game is a very peace-loving country, and it's just they're like very warmongery. And then Brodia, which are the warmongery ones that are very like defensive in this, like they've just like isolated themselves in this one. And you're helping like 2 other dragons basically, and you get to meet friendly versions of some of the main villains that fight on your side as well. And it's a fun little story so far. I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying the maps. They're a different sort of challenge of trying to make sure that you're keeping everybody in line and doing what they can do. I'm playing them on hard because that was my default difficulty. You can change the DLC's difficulty as you like without affecting your main game. I don't know how... maddening feels like it would suck. They're pleasingly challenging on hard. Maddening feels like it would not be fun.
Is there consequences in this to characters dying?
No, it's on casual mode, basically.
Got it.
You can't, if your main character dies, or if the two dragons that you're helping, Nell and Nil, die, you have to turn back time or reset.
Mm-hmm.
So you, like, half the characters you have out can't die, or you'll have to do something, but the other ones, there's no consequences for that in this.
It's interesting. I can't, like, Fire Emblem kind of battle challenge situations. This seems like an obvious and fun idea, but I can't imagine how you would set that up for something like Three Houses. Right? Of course you could set up like the story version of it. I just mean
Cindered Shadows is basically this, the DLC wave thing.
Right.
You get like 2 units from each house basically, plus the new characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they're set at a certain class and a certain level.
Interesting.
For those. But that's totally, like, all of these are, like, totally separate from the main story. I think the Awakening ones were, like, you are the kids in, like, the ruined world, and you're trying to get to, like, the portal, basically.
Mm.
Those ones are, like, brutally hard, from what I remember. I don't think I ever finished them, because it's, like, you got, like, 2 units on the map against, like, hordes and hordes. It's more of, like, a vibes thing than, like, a really fair challenge, I guess.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I mean, obviously I haven't ever played Cindered Shadows, but yeah, off the top of my head, I was like, oh, everybody can be every class, and the weapons triangle doesn't exist. So, like, designing a challenge that would feel correct seems much harder given those sorts of broader limitations. But that makes a lot more sense if they're just like, these people are going to be these classes.
Yeah.
That still feels harder, like, from a strategic point of view, but interesting.
The Three Houses DLC maps have a lot more gimmicks than the main map just do.
Mm-hmm.
So I found them pretty fun when I played them.
Well, on to another podcast game for me. All of them podcast games. I finally, like, weaned myself off of Vampire Survivors, I think, although thinking about it for the show.
Maybe you could play it some more.
Right
now.
Exactly.
Oh god, she's opening Steam on her computer. I can see it.
It popped up. Emma, my, like, outed on Emma's friends list. So I've gotten most of the, like, there's lots of achievements. It's like, get this character to level 50, survive this long in this level, and I've done most of that at this point. And I can definitely see what people were saying about the post game or, like, the late game stuff not feeling as robust. At first, like, a lot of the Vampire Survivor stuff for a long time was like, oh, it's so exciting to try to figure out how to evolve the weapons and what the new weapons evolutions do. And now I know all of those, and I have access to so many of the Arcana cards that give you, like, other bonus skills or bonus things. That some of that kind of, like, joy, excitement, roguelike vibe of it isn't as there anymore, because you can, like, always, you have enough rerolls and you have enough banishes and you have enough whatever to basically always craft the build for your character that you want. Now, Emma is not going to believe me saying this, because I played one run of Vampire Survivors in front of her and I died at, like, 10 minutes because I was stupid. But I did finally, I've been putting off playing the Mount Moonspell DLC level, and I did play some of that. I don't know that Vampire Survivors really benefits from, like, more terrain and more stuff, like, more complicated maps.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that it adds some additional challenge. I was just whining about there not being enough challenge and it not feeling varied enough. But I haven't found that map to be so exciting. It's just like, I just get lost. I like get stuck inside a house or I get stuck inside a cave or something and I can't get out. So it's interesting. It's an interesting idea for sure. And it adds some new weapons and some new characters and stuff, and all that's fun. But I haven't found the sort of like more crafted map to really add a lot to my experience relative to just like wide open with some traps situation. But I have killed Death a bunch. I can play as Death now if I want to. If I really want it to be really easy, I can play as Death. And yeah, like if there was like another like big DLC round release, which there probably will be, I might fire it up to play that again. Or if I'm like the next time I'm on like an airplane, right? It'll and I'm not ready to go full whole hog into Civilization. It'll be like a handy thing to have. It's good for that sort of thing. But I think I can finally say that I can put it down for a while. I've played an embarrassing. Like, I don't really like that Steam is constantly reminding you how many hours of a game you've played.
It's like a status symbol, Mal.
It's not though. It's embarrassing. It's not a status symbol. It's embarrassing.
Not necessarily a good status symbol.
No. You're right. A symbol of your like mental status at the time. A call for help. But it's also a game that, I mean, as I talked about on the show and subsequently, it's also a game that my boyfriend and I, played a lot as sort of like a trading off situation. Although I think I eventually eclipsed him in how far I had advanced into it. But it was fun that way. It was fun as a game for that. It was fun it's just a fun game to watch moment to moment. Because at any point you can just mess up and die. Or get fun new weapons, or like there's decisions to make. And the, little bopping song for the treasure chests is always a bop. So not a local co-op game exactly, although man, that would be wild. I'm here for console local co-op Vampire Survivors if anyone's listening. Because that would be crazy. But it was fun to watch, fun to play. A good moment for me to put it down.
All right, another 2 for me.
I was holding down the fort.
I mentioned on our rhythm game episode, but I played Hi-Fi Rush on Xbox Game Pass. It was quite fun. Except for the few moments where there was like the extra challenge difficulty of Emma tries to remember which buttons are which on the Xbox controller. I really need a patch. I need a patch that we were thinking about this for PAX the whole time. I just need a patch where it just says the button that it would be on the PlayStation. It was really funny because like you don't need it for combat really. Like there are just like little rhythm puzzles basically that'll be like press this button at this time that you're like starting up a generator or something. And oh my god, I would have to restart starting this generator like 10 times because I forgot which one was the A button in the middle.
Why must starting a generator in games, 1, be such a ubiquitous thing, and 2, be awful always? I was just The Last of Us. To be fair,
if it had been on PlayStation, it would have been perfectly fine. So it is not awful necessarily. I don't want to say that.
I'm just saying, what's with the obsession with generators, game devs? Why so many?
In this case, Hi-Fi Rush is like you're on like a corporate island, essentially. Your protagonist, Chai, has come here because he doesn't have full function of one of his arms. And so he's getting fitted in the new Project Armstrong that this company is putting on. That I'm forgetting the company's name, but it's fine. It's a corporation. And they'll like give you like really high tech robotic parts, essentially, like and a job theoretically. So he's going to get his arm replaced so that he can have full function, basically. But there's like an accident. The CEO finds his iPod that he's put in his little belongings case and says, "What a piece of junk," and then throws it. And right as Chai's getting like all spread out, he's like, "I'm ready for my arm." The iPod lands on his chest, and so it also installs him an iPod in his like heart, essentially.
Okay.
And that's what gives him musical rhythm powers, in addition to having a cool robot arm that's theoretically made for garbage collection, but it can also fight with things, I guess.
Right. Transferable skills. I gotcha.
They are. Yeah. It's like has like a magnetic picker upper it has inside of it, and so he pulls lots of metal things to it into like a guitar shape, of course. Then he can hit people with it.
I'm buying this.
You get recruited by a girl named Peppermint. She's looking into something they're doing called Spectra, which seems to be some sort of sussy project that they've got going on. And in exchange for helping Chai escape this island, because he's been marked as a defect due to his iPod heart, he has to help her out with like investigating this thing. So you end up going through the whole island, fighting a bunch of the different like department heads, and taking down the evil corporate empire.
Is everyone named after like herbal-y flavors?
Like food.
Okay.
More. There's one of your other friends is macaron, cinnamon. I can't remember. I can't remember all of the names. Some of the bosses are mimosa and kale.
Oh, kale is kind of I was like, okay, so like sweet coated foods, but kale is not that.
Yeah. So there's sort of there's not really any like lore reason. I think it's just like.
Do you feel like that suggests that this is part of the Chicory extended universe?
Probably.
Like there, it's all about visual art.
Yeah, and here it's all about auditory art. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's quite a good time. I liked it. I could not figure out how to get above an A rank at all consistently, but that's fine.
Some of us are born with natural rhythm.
Madelyn would probably do it. She'd be like, Emma, this is easy. You just press it on the beat, stupid. God, nobody has any rhythm. What's wrong with them? Judging by our rhythm game episode.
That's not a fair categorization of me. That's not a fair characterization. It's mostly fair, but it's not fair.
There's also a lot of the bosses have there's licensed music in it, but there's also streamer friendly mode, which I did go and listen to some of the streamer friendly tracks, and they are equally catchy. I think the only real downgrade is it starts with Lonely Boy by the Black Keys, and the Lonely Boy sound alike is not as good, but otherwise some pretty good good replacements in there.
A rank, not S rank, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, another game I played. I played A Space for the Unbound, which is so Emma-core that you wouldn't believe it.
Nice.
It's an adventure game. You play as it's set in Indonesia. Excuse me. So it's you play as Atma, who. There's a little opening where you're hanging out with your little friend, younger friend named Nirmala, who seems to be having some trouble at home. And so there's a little introductory sequence. You have this strange power where you have this book that can lead you into people's minds. And then at the end of this, there's an accident where Nirmala falls into the river, and as Atma is trying to rescue her, he also falls into the river. And seemingly, dies. However, he then wakes up in a high school with a girl who calls herself his girlfriend named Raya. And, seems to have nothing to do with any of the beginning stuff. And as you continue through, you're hanging out with Raya. She seems to have some sort of mysterious power to affect things around her. Which eventually introduces you by taking you to Cat Wonderland. But within Cat Wonderland, something seems to glitch, and the cats start freaking out at you, and so you're brought back to the town, but the cats had followed you and seem to have infected, like, the townspeople.
Okay.
And you have to help them out of their cat states, but then, like, the sky cracks, and suddenly you're waking up on the desk again, and things continue from there. You start to get a sense that maybe something's a little bit funky-wonky going on.
I'm not
might say.
understanding the Emma core element here. There seem to be evil cats, which I wouldn't normally think of as, like, so your aesthetic.
Emma core elements. Magical realism.
Okay.
Sort of coming of age situations. Like unhealthy grief, I guess.
Okay.
Big, jumps into people's heads that are sort of abstracted. Those are some of the Emma core elements.
Okay. But not the evil cats.
Not evil cats, necessarily. That's part of, like, the sort of fantasy realism, strange situations going on. That's, like, an example of it,
Just want everyone, as they're creating their Emma core catalog, their Emma core Pinterest out there, not to be like, oh, evil cats. Gotta throw evil cats in here.
Anyway, I really loved it. Each day afterwards, after that first one that I described, is sort of centered around a different character that's in this town, that you're sort of, like, dealing with them or hanging out with them as the day goes on and how they relate to Raya. And you keep seeing also, like, flashes of Nirmala, the character you saw at the very beginning, and you have to sort of figure out, like, what's going on here? What's really happening? Is this an afterlife? Is this something else? Whatever. And it's got some sick music, and it changes up. Each day is also, like, a different sort of gameplay mechanic. It's all, like, around, like, going into people's heads, but the way that you interact with it changes based on, like, the theming of the character that it's themed around, right? So second day is all about, like, little, like, fighting game combos, sort of. The second day is sort of like Phoenix Wright situation. And the third day is more like overlapping puzzles, sort of.
That's cool.
A lot more of, like, getting items and applying them to different situations to get through them.
What did you play this on?
Switch, but I believe it's on everything.
Nice.
I think. But yeah, I really liked it. I didn't quite... There's a bucket list that's, like, sort of like side quests you can do throughout it. You and make a bucket list on, like, the very beginning. And some of them are checked off just through progressing the story, and then there's little side quests. Unfortunately, I did not pet every animal in town. So, one off the bucket list.
Man.
But
Brutal.
That's fine. That was fine.
Brutal. Well, speaking of the Switch, the two Nintendo Switch games I played this time, my Switch has not been getting a lot of use, so I gotta get back to ye old Nintendo. But as I talked about in the show, I played the front mission demo.
Right.
Which was fine. I won't talk about that too much here. I'll just note that I played it. It's available on the Switch. Front mission 2, probably coming soon, too. But it did not grab me enough. I was sort of enjoying it, but there was enough tinkering with the machines involved that I was like, this will not be it for me. And then I finally, after much delay, returned to playing some Triangle Strategy. I had forgotten how, and this is true in Fire Emblem too, strategy games just take forever.
Yeah.
Triangle Strategy's battles take like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Which I think is a sort of impediment to me getting into a good rhythm with this game, is that it's the kind of game that I want to be able to be like, yes, I want to make progress, and I want to finish a battle or do something this time that I play. And then when I do that, it's like, 2.5 hours later, I'm like almost done with the battle. Mm-hmm. But it was good to get back to it after simmering in my betrayal for several months. And, we've betrayed the prince, and that's okay. He seems chill about it.
He's fine.
I mean, he seems fine for now. He seems chill about it. He's probably going to turn evil. I think he's probably going to turn evil. That's my prediction. But, the whole town's burned down. That's kind of our fault. But improbably, I did survive the battle. Both story-wise and gameplay-wise.
Yeah.
Improbably, I did survive the battle. Emma witnessed this.
I did.
This doesn't look good.
You did it.
But I did it. Triangle strategy is hard. I don't know how, do I need to be doing, repeating a bunch of mental mock battles?
I think just that map is hard.
Okay.
I remember I had a different map here because I didn't give Roland over. But that one
weren't betrayed.
It was also really hard. And I think a lot of the other maps are not as difficult as this one.
That's reassuring because I played that battle and I was like, maybe I'm 4 levels under leveled for all of my characters because
the 3 who survived now. They're swimming in XP.
Yes, they're powerful. Now, the ones who somehow made it through. But it's good. I think I was in danger of abandoning triangle strategy, which I didn't want to do because I've been enjoying it and I've played enough of it that it would feel sort of silly to abandon it. So it's one of those games on my list for these next 6 weeks to say, okay, let me sit down, let me actually play this. Because I just haven't gotten into a good rhythm with it because of how I just need to get better at saying I can stop in the middle of a battle.
Yeah,
that's not how I like to play these kinds of games. I just don't like that.
Yeah.
But I think I have to get used to it if I'm going to make significant progress. The voice acting is grating on me less, by the way. I feel like he sounds a little more normal now.
I think you maybe just get used to it, to be honest.
That's probably it. I'm just used to it being sort of badly acted now. So hopefully, listeners, next time it'll be I finished Triangle Strategy and not just I played another 3 hours of Triangle Strategy. I've gotta commit here.
Okay, do you have one more?
I have one more.
Do you want me to do my last 2 and then you wrap it up, or do you want me to do 1, 1, 1?
What?
Do you want me to do my last 2 and then
you have
wrap
2
it
more?
Up?
I was confused. I thought you were saying you had 3. Anyway, I didn't understand you. If you think that you've got a real closer, I trust you. If you don't, I also trust you.
Do you want me to close with Resident Evil, or do you want me not to? That's the question.
Well, my other game is Trine, so
I guess I should close with Resident Evil.
Wow. All right.
Unless you're really psyched about Trine.
I finished Trine.
You could be really psyched.
We played the whole game, but I think Resident Evil is a good closer, so that's fine.
All right. The other small game that I played, one of Square Enix published games that they just sort of, sprinkle sometimes. They just reach into their bag.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks and then throw it out and then are why is anyone buying the salt that we dropped on the ground? I played Paranormacite, 7 Mysteries of Hanjo, which is sort of a horror-themed visual adventure novel. It's got character. It was really fun. It's got character designs by Gen Kobayashi, who does a lot of the World Ends With You designs, right?
Oh, neat.
They're much more realistically rendered. But once you know that and you look at the World Ends With You designs and you look at these ones, you're like, oh yeah,
They are unrealistic. Yeah.
No, I meant the same guy did these, is what I meant. Not that the 12 designs are exactly.
Okay, you're seeing the similarities. You're seeing the similarities, not seeing the people in The World Ends With You have limbs that are 2 inches wide.
Yeah, they're stylized.
Yeah. I get it now. I understand.
But the way he draws faces, I guess. The way that he designs faces, you can see the similarities in them. It's just interesting because it's such 2 different art styles, and yet you can look at them and be like, I can see the guy in there.
Yeah.
I find stuff like that interesting. Anyway, Paranormal Sight is about in the district of Hanzhou, which is, I think, the part of Tokyo, essentially, where it's Sumida Ward. I don't know. There's a lot of, like, place. I think it's in Tokyo. But there's, you know, these urban legends that go around that are sort of collectively called the Seven Mysteries, even though there's more than 7 of them, right? There's just, like, sort of a place where there's a bunch of urban legends have sort of collected. And one night, you're, you know, just as one of the protagonists, Shogo, you're just sort of hanging out with a girl you kind of want to date. She's really into the occult, so you're like, yeah, let's go to this weird playground at night.
Right, normal.
I guess.
Normal thing.
Sure. And there's like this sudden event where Yoko, the girl that you're with, apparently sees something behind you, and then when you turn back around, she's like dead, and you're given a curse stone that sort of like gives you like this resentful memory in your mind that makes you want to kill, and like tasks you with like finding soul dregs, essentially. And if you're able to fill up your stone with enough soul dregs, you will be granted access to the rite of resurrection, right, where you can bring somebody back from the dead. And you get more soul dregs for killing other people that hold curse stones. But each curse stone has its own unique like activation protocol. So Shogo's has the Whispering Canal, which is if somebody walks away from you, you can kill them with the curse stone. So you basically just have to get somebody to leave a conversation, and then you can kill them by drowning, essentially. It's sort of like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Here's the thing. I actively resist knowing anything about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I look at those character faces and I go, I don't think this show is, like, just the design of those characters. I'm like, I don't think this is for me. So that was probably very helpful for some listeners.
I don't know very much about JoJo's either, but whatever. So, you know, you go through one route as Shogo, you know, surviving your way through encounters with curse bearers.
Why bother? Why not just get like an internet, like an online customer service job, like a telephone customer service?
They can't walk away from you if they're over the phone.
Do they have to literally walk away, or just end a conversation?
They have to turn their back on you and walk away.
Okay, fine. So like a grocery clerk or something. I don't know, like
a grocery clerk. Yeah, that wouldn't be suspicious at all.
Well, whatever. Don't do every customer.
There seems to be like a stack of corpses at the end of that aisle. Do you think we should? The line's long on the other one. I guess it's fine. But as you go through, all of this is sort of framed by this character called the storyteller, who is telling you this story as you go. And every time you sort of fail an encounter as Shogo, you're brought back to the storyteller, and he's like, "You know what you did wrong, right? You can help Shogo because he doesn't know, but you know, right?"
Yeah.
And so you start to notice that, like, there's a couple of situations where you have to do something for Shogo that he wouldn't necessarily do on his own. So, like, you encounter a woman who is threatening to kill you with her curse stone, and there's no way to pass the first conversation with her without dying, because you don't know what her activation thing is. However, at the end, when Shogo burns to death, you're like, oh, it's something to do with fire. I guess maybe it's this lighter that I have on me. And so you go into the items and you're like, throw this away, Shogo. And Shogo's like, what? And you're like, yeah, throw it away, Shogo. And he just does it. And the woman's like, how'd you know? And he's like, I don't know. It just sort of felt like it.
Yeah.
So it sort of has that, like, there's a bit of a meta element. It's really heavy in the first part. I don't want to there's one puzzle solution that made me cackle with glee out loud because it was so funny and good. So I don't want to spoil too much of, like, what the sort of first hour is like with Shogo. Because I think it's probably the strongest part of the game, and I did like this game quite a bit. But you sort of get to the end of it, and Shogo has, like, succeeded, but somehow still ends up dying. But by this point, you figured out what happened to Yoko, right? And so you're able to prevent that. However, somehow, Shogo still ends up dying. And that's when the game opens up to 3 more protagonists that you've encountered as Shogo, unlike the first one where you're going on like a killing spree, essentially. And they each have their own curse stones and their own story that's going on. So you follow them through their paths and try to figure out what's happening, why you've gotten these curse stones. And there's other like culty conspiracy stuff going on as it continues as well. It's just quite fun. And it's really well presented. Like I said, I really like the character designs, but it like really makes an effort to, like, it's a visual novel, but really makes its effort to present itself sort of cinematically, I guess. Like it will place its character models against backgrounds. Like when people are having a conversation, they'll do like shoulder shots, essentially. Like where you can see somebody's back and somebody's face, and then you can see somebody's back and somebody's face. That sort of makes it more engaging. It makes it feel more like sort of a TV show versus like a book or a comic, I guess. I don't know. But I really enjoyed it. I don't think it ever is quite as strong as like the first part will lead you to believe, but it's still a really entertaining story. And there's a little secret ending too, which is like a cute, like, have you figured out what's going on here sort of thing, that I quite liked as well. If you like stuff like Zero Escape or the Isomnium stuff, just Uchikoshi stuff, you will probably enjoy this. Just the same sort of, it does. The Uchikoshi will just write his Wikipedia article dumps into like conversations. This will like put it in files for you, but still.
Well, on that very story-driven note, I played all of Trine. Click Boyfriend and I played all of Trine Enchanted Edition, the first one, and we enjoyed it. We had, I think, much more fun with Trine than we anticipated having. I sort of anticipated it being one of these podcast games that it's like, whatever, I've gotten like 4 games for $10 here, so who cares if I only play a couple hours of one? Like, how many dollars a minute or dollars an hour have I spent? Right. But we did end up finishing it. And again, much like River City Girls from the beginning of the episode, I felt like Trine, and this is something that I think gets underappreciated in these kinds of games, really was the correct length and the correct level of difficulty for what it had to offer, in my opinion. In that, like, we said over and over to each other while playing it about how, like, it's kind of charmingly janky, right? And so at times, that means it can be kind of annoying to get through puzzles, and at times it can be like, well, I lift the block and then I carry Click Boyfriend playing the thief, like, to where he needs to go, and you can just kind of cheese your way through puzzles, right? So I appreciated kind of the back and forth balance of that, but you know, Trine is just this like fantasy kind of light physics puzzle solver, and that's really all it needed to be. It has been so long since we've had too much local co-op to do that it's like, again, we were talking about this before the episode of just like local co-op in itself is fun, and so the game doesn't have to be anything so wildly deep or exciting. It's just fun to be able to play the games together. But I did think that Trine, like, because of that jankiness, it was at the level of complexity that it could sustain. Right? There were still times where it's like, I'm a wizard main and Click Boyfriend is a thief main, right? And so the warrior didn't get a lot of, we're like, how do we do the warrior skills? We don't even remember. What do we do with the warrior? Who knows? But at the end, like, the wizard gets an ability where you have to draw, before you've been drawing squares and drawing lines to summon things. And at the end, they were like, draw a triangle to summon a floating platform. And it's like, oh, this game is not equipped for me to draw a triangle and for it to know that it's a triangle. Maybe with a mouse, it would have been better on the mouse. But on console, I just kept throwing blocks in the air that did not float. So it being like pretty easy throughout was sort of exactly right, because I felt like even though there were some abilities that seemed like pretty unnecessary or that you didn't need to use, that if the game had been more difficult, it would have been less charming and more frustrating that there's so much sort of like unspecificity in how you interact with the world. So it was not a game that felt to me like it could have been harder or more challenging without just fundamentally having to be a very different game. Which was interesting, especially for a game that I had very low expectations for. It did have, and I think that this level is controversial among players because it's a big difficulty spike, but it did have a final level that I would consider to be a little bit of a boss rush. A little bit of a boss rush. In that it's not really a boss rush. The combat in Trine sucks. The combat in Trine is like really boring, lame. Like, just mash the button, kill the thing. It's fine. But that last level, you gotta climb that tower, and the lava is rising, and if you fall, you die. So
as happens with lava.
Right, yes. So if it had been, like, we got through it in, like, 6 tries, and so if it had been, like, even a little bit harder, it might have been frustrating, and it was really weird, because until our, like, very last play session with the last, like, 3 worlds or so, we'd had a deathless Trine run, by which I mean we had always managed to hit a checkpoint before we killed all 3 characters. Sometimes really by the skin of our teeth. But only in this last little set of playing today did we have some times where we just like totally died. And there's no real consequence in that. You just get put back to the checkpoint. But for the final level, you have to be able to do it basically all in one sitting until you get to the very top. And yeah, it was good for me to feel like instead of it being like this coasting to the finish thing, especially for a game where we spent the whole time making fun of like, what's even happening in the story? Who knows? Who cares, right? Let's just do our little puzzles. But especially for a game where there was just like no narrative momentum to speak of. Like there was a little story. There's a little story happening, but there was no narrative that I felt any investment to, like, they were definitely going to fix things at the end.
Right.
Right? It was good to have like a little difficulty spike there to say, okay, you're at the end of the game. You know, hopefully you've gotten okay at using some of these abilities by now. Hopefully you don't jump the wizard into the lava like a quarter of the way up, and now you don't know how to use the thief's or the warrior skills, and you're stuck. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you. But yeah, overall fun. Overall, I think we're gonna play Trine 2. Trine 2 is supposed to be better than the first one, so we're like, okay, like let's try Trine 2. Even though playing multiplayer totally destroys the point of the story, which is that they're all trapped in one body instead of being 3 people sharing 2 bodies.
I think they fixed that by the end of this game, though, right?
Yeah. They've detrined, but
yeah.
Spoiler, sorry, they've detrined by the end of the game. But you know, I did feel like in a lot of ways that playing it 2-player was kind of the appropriate difficulty level, right? You had to be able to get 2 of the characters through any given puzzle. But it did sometimes allow you to just, like, totally cheese it. Like, did a lot of, having the thief grapple on something and the wizard just move the thief to where she needed to go. Mm-hmm. But I also felt like if you were only one person, like, you would have even more opportunities to just kind of, like, whatever your way through puzzles. So 2 felt appropriate. 3 felt like it would have been punishing, frankly, to get all 3 characters through all of the puzzles. And that must have been a real design challenge, too. But I'm looking forward to playing Trine 2 in a little bit. I love that the wizard had triplets as like his like ending thing. Yeah. Who all mastered the fireball before the age of 1. Was really, I'm glad the warrior's an alcoholic now.
Good.
And the thief lives in the woods. So, you know, like a good story wrap up to a game with no story that I cared about at all. I was like, absolutely, the wizard can have like arsonist 1-year-olds. That sounds great. That's totally consistent with how much I've cared about the story up to this point. So if you're looking for like some kind of like pretty low key co-op thing where you get to yell at your partner when he loves to shoot the little extra experience potions with the arrows. They just go flying someplace random, and you have to jump back to track them down. If you don't mind a little bit of that kind of like Overcooked style tension in your relationship, then I would recommend trying. I would recommend it.
All right. Close it up.
Spooky, scary times.
Resident Evil 4. I've never played a Resident Evil before. But their funny trailer, their like last trailer, I was like, this game looks funny. I was like, I'll buy it. They're in mine carts. There's a big baby.
Funny
times. But yeah, no, I felt like I'd get this one because it is not, well, it's a horror game, right? But it's not like RE2 or 3, where my impression of them is like you're like walking through dark hallways all the time, and any enemy you've killed could snap up and get you around the corner or whatever. That's sort of scary. This is definitely more action oriented. Leon Kennedy is armed to the gills at this point in my game. He has every gun known to man.
He has
somehow
to. He has
strapped
to.
him. He's got a single-use rocket launcher sitting in storage, ready to come out when Emma gets frustrated on a boss or something. But yeah, it's more sort of action-oriented. It's very, people talk about, I love watching, I wouldn't play Dark Souls, but I do love watching clips of people, like, comically dying in Dark Souls, And I feel like Resident Evil 4 has some of that similar energy of, like, it's a little different because a lot of the comedy comes from, like I got stuck in, like, Chapter 5, there's a fight where you've just found Ashley, who is the president's daughter, who you're here to rescue from this weird cult in Spain. And you're being chased by villagers, and you happen across Luis, who you found in the first chapter in a bag. He's just around now. And you all end up in the cabin, sort of being sieged by villagers. You send Ashley out of there, and just you and Luis, like, holding down the fort in a cabin.
Sure. Boys' weekend.
As long as you can. Boys' weekend. And it becomes like a whole mess. It's quite difficult, but also incredibly funny to try to handle, like, villagers coming at you from all sides with their torches and their shovels that make a funny boing noise when you get hit with them.
You love that shovel noise.
It's so funny. They've got shovels. Like, whatever. Leon can take, a punch, a swipe, but if he gets hit by a shovel, he is laid out.
What do you expect?
Like, a bwong.
You try getting hit by a shovel.
It's quite funny. And there's a bunch of stuff like that that's like, it's sort of nerve-biting and anxiety-inducing, but also kind of amusing at the same time in a weird way. It's good at balancing that sort of tonal disconnect of it all, I guess. In a way that, like, it's, it's scary. There is a section where you play as Ashley, where you have to get Leon out of a trap, essentially. And even that part's, like, that's probably the more traditionally scariest part. But even that, like, she's being chased by, like, knights in armor during this part.
Yeah.
Like, tons and tons of knights in armor. And so even though you're like, freaking out, it is a little bit like, this is funny.
Yeah.
At the same time. And it's good at balancing that. One thing it's really interesting to have played The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. Because one, I can see how they probably took inspiration from, like, the original Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
And also, it's really funny how the UI in this is just The Last of Us UI. In this remake.
Wow.
It's got, like, the health bar in the side is, like, the little circle one. You switch your guns using the D-pad with the same sort of, like, you got 2 guns on each side thing. It's quite funny. But I was thinking about that because, like I said, occasionally you have You either have Ashley or Luis as like an AI partner during certain parts of the game. Ashley's totally defenseless, so her aspect of that of adding to the gameplay is you have to sort of manage where she is, right? Because she can get grabbed, and you don't want her to get grabbed and taken far away, because then you'll lose, essentially.
Yeah.
So you can tell her to either stick like right behind you, or to sort of run around the place and stay away from you, sort of, depending on what your situation is. And you have to be aware of what you're doing, because like if you're if you're trying to use the shotgun while she's like right behind you and you're like turning around real fast, you may hit her with the shotgun. You can in fact shoot her.
Oops.
As I discovered.
Oopsies.
So that's sort of the aspect of when she's around. Like, she's not annoying, in my opinion. I know some people like
the internet doesn't feel that way, but
the original Ashley is very infamous, so I don't really know what she was like. But in this, it's just like, as long as you're managing her, like being aware of where she is, she's not hard to deal with at all. And she'll help you in a couple of combat scenarios where there's like scripted things for her to do. But there's also Luis, who's not defenseless. He has a gun. And I was thinking about The Last of Us of, like, you often have an AI companion in The Last of Us, but they never do anything, right? I was thinking about this a little bit. I feel like they don't, like, get in the way, right? But they're not, like, terribly useful, right?
Ellie will fight things sometimes, but not very often. Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, you don't have Luis for very much of the game. Like, it seems like you have him for, like, one chapter plus, like, the cabin fight. But it was, like, really striking. Like, he's so active as an AI partner. I was wondering what, like, the design... Like, how do you design an AI partner? How do you decide, like, this guy's, like... I was thinking about, it's like, often when you have you don't want them to take away too much of the gameplay from the player. Right?
Yeah.
If you have one constantly, you probably don't want them to be too active, because then the player is just, like, relying on them a bit.
We get into an Atreus solving puzzles for you. I mean, it's not the same thing, but you get
no,
the idea.
But sort of like that, yeah. In a combat scenario. Whereas I feel like in this one, because you have him so not very much, and also they feel like they can throw, like, tons and tons of enemies at you when you happen to have him in your party, was something I was noticing. Like, I was like, oh, Luis, you brought all your friends. Because, like, you can sometimes get grabbed, for instance, and whenever Luis is in the party, you don't have to fight your way out of the grab. He'll just shoot you out of them pretty, like, 95% of the time.
Nice.
Which is not, you know, something that happens in The Last of Us. No. So yeah, that was just something that was on my mind. I was thinking about, like, how do you decide how to do AI for, like, a shooting game? Of, like, balancing, making them feel like they're present, but not, like, stealing it from you. Or maybe you want it to feel that way if they're not constantly with you, or can that affect how many enemies that can be thrown at you at once, you know, if you happen to have a partner at that time, so we could make, like, set pieces like that. Anyway, that's a weird little tangent that my brain went on when I was playing, like, the last chapter that I was playing. But it's quite fun. You get to, you know, have all the fun of cult nonsense without feeling too colonizer about it. Like, it's in Spain, and we were in the castle where the guy is, like, literally dressed up as, like, a conquistador. So I don't have to feel too bad about this.
Yeah,
right?
doing the world a favor here.
I mean, you know, the villagers are, like, the cult came to town and, like, infected the village, essentially. So it is sort of sad for the villagers in that way, but clearly the cult is no good, you know. So perfectly honest, if I was Leon, I would just hang out with my friend the merchant the whole time. I think that the merchant would probably be better at taking care of Ashley than I would, if I'm being honest.
That seems fair.
He seems like he can, like, teleport, you know.
Yeah.
He's always safe. Nobody bothers him.
Seems like a wise judgment.
His coat seems to contain the universe in terms of how much stuff it can have in it. Just put Ashley in there. little pocket dimension for
I feel
her.
like you've solved the whole problem.
But there's tons of like fun set pieces. Like you get catapults thrown at you. There's like gimmick enemies that like clicker sort of things where they can't see you but they can hear you, right? So you have to take them out, or you can use them to attack, regular enemies, for example, because they cannot see, they can only hear. And if they hear the villager going, "The Gloria las Plagas" or whatever, they will hit them with their claws.
Of course.
And such like that. What was the last thing that I was thinking about? Both the villagers and also when you die when Luis is in your party, I'm pretty sure I know how to say the F word in Spanish now. So
Nice.
fun facts.
Pass it along to my boyfriend.
I will, just so you can know.
You played a lot of games.
Yeah, I was really hoping to finish Resident Evil before this episode, but I don't know how anyone plays more than like an hour of it at a time, because like I said, it's not that scary, but it's very anxiety inducing and like reaction speed dependent. And so I'm just like exhausted by the time I finish a chapter. I don't know how people play this. Like, yeah.
More mental stamina than you.
Basically.
Apparently.
My baby gamer hands can't take it.
Listeners, have you ever played more than an hour of Resident Evil at a stretch? Do you like local co-op games, no matter what they are? Are half of the games that you've played this time themed around the number 3 or triangles or something like that? Do you understand what Emma Core is and how it's not angry cats? If you have thoughts on any of these things or anything else we talked about this episode, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog, featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend and Split Screen. Finally, and most importantly, if you enjoyed the show, you should subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, wherever you can find podcasts, wherever you found the podcast today. Subscribe to Talk This. I have no idea what the next 2 games are. It's been so long since we drew those games from the hat.
I know that the new game is Tachia, which I still need to confirm the pronunciation of, but I don't know what the old game is. So we'll go look.
Yeah, sometimes I can look at the website and it'll jump out to me, but
yeah,
I don't know. You put Parappa the Rapper in, though. Good call.
I did. I'm like 95% sure it wasn't Parappa the Rapper.
No, I know it wasn't that. I was just saying, oh man, I hadn't seen that on the list. How exciting. You should check it out on the website, listeners. But that's our show. Thanks for listening. Let's see. Listeners, I hope this week that you have more physical ability to get hit by a shovel than Leon.